Hey, good evening, everyone. John Henry Soto here. Welcome to JHS Interviews. Tonight, Michael Simon Hall is back. Storyteller, actor, writer, director, producer. He does it all. We had such a great conversation last time. It went long. We just kept going and going, and we said, oh man, he's got to come back. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to JHS Interviews, Michael Simon Hall. What's up, my man?
Hey man. Hey John.
Thank thank you so much for coming back. Last time we were talking, it was like I looked up and it was like an hour and 20 or something. I
I
was like,
know.
what the
I
hell?
once I get going, you can't shut me up.
But it was great because I was interested in everything. So it was like I didn't even feel it, it was like
I
so
know.
it was
Neither did
great.
I. Yeah.
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 So
It was great.
let's repeat that because we had such a great time. One of the things that I know we talked about, we had a few questions that some of the and I don't know if they're on now or if they're watching, but if they are, I thought maybe we can just go back a little bit and answer a few questions. One in particular that you had mentioned about daily practice and kind of things that you do. Some people meditate, some people, they do yoga, they jog, they kind of just to kind of get their chops up. I wanted to just answer that question first, and then we can move on to kind of like the meat of the program and stuff. So, do you do anything
Oh.
like that? Do
Oh
you
yeah.
meditate?
Sure. Well, I don't meditate per se. I mean, you have. It's kind of funny if people are just joining for the first time. What the heck? They're talking about meditation. What's going on?
Let's
You
get
know. But
started.
but someone asked this last time, an actor, about what practices that you do that help you, and they mentioned meditation. And then I never went back to it. I never answered her question. We went on some tangent or something, and
Mm,
um, I mean, I've studied in the past. I've studied meditation, and there's many different kinds of meditation, and um, I think some may be more valid than others. And I believe it's called transcendental meditation, which is
mhm.
about focusing on the breath. And I believe, especially as an actor, breath is everything,
Yeah.
as a performing artist, even as a musician. I mean, even if
Mhm.
you're not playing a wind instrument,
Oh yeah.
breathing is everything, and how you communicate with your body and everything. So anything that helps you get in touch with your breath is a great thing. It's and so when I was young, I studied the breath on my own. And then I had a great class way back, one of my first classes, where our teacher had us focus on breath, and we approached our characters from the point of view of breath. How
Oh,
does this character breathe? And
interesting.
that's a fascinating study, and that's something that it's like one of these ongoing inquiries that you can always that never ends. That how
Right.
does this character breathe?
Mm,
And it's a way to maybe access some things, or to be able to depict the character. And the breath is closely associated with your thoughts, and it can bring about all kinds of ideas. And so I just remember that, and that was a big thing to me. And but in terms of meditation, and I think what's helpful is to, anything you can do that helps you get in touch with your breathing is a great thing. And some people do that through meditation. And also, the good thing is, in this form of meditation, you actually have something to focus on. You're actually putting your attention on your breathing, and you're kind of getting in communication with your body. And I think that, I mean, that's a great thing. Anything helps you get in communication with your body, especially as an actor. Um, but my form of meditation sort of is, I prefer, and I think it's, you see, the risk with, I think, in my experience with meditation, is that it can introvert the person and get them overly fixated on their mind, when it's supposed to be the opposite. You're supposed to be able to know that you have thoughts
right.
that
Right.
you
Yeah.
may or may not be able to control, but know that they are just thoughts. They are not you, and you let your thoughts come and go, but you are yourself. But sometimes people can get introverted into the thoughts they're having when they meditate. and
Mm, yeah.
that's and
Yeah.
that it's kind of like, it becomes like a dwindling spiral. So
Right.
one of the great things is, it's very like an old-fashioned remedy, is that I like, that's sort of like a meditative practice for me. And this is one of the things that I do basically almost daily, usually daily. I go out for a walk, and I
Hmm.
just observe my environment, and I put my attention out into the environment.
Mhm.
Okay, so and I think that's very healthy because you're putting your attention out and you're just observing. You're not thinking. You're not correlating. You're not, analyzing things. You're just being, and you're just simply perceiving and being present to the environment around you. And it gets you out of your head. It gets you in communication with the world around you. And it's really a great way to also, to relieve stress, but it's also just a way to become present.
Mm.
And I think, obviously as an actor, it's all about being present. And when you're on set or when you're on stage, you need to be as present as you can be. And that is really about being in communication with the environment around you, the other actor that's across from you, and really being present to them and
Yeah.
everything that they're giving you, or, on the set. And so that's kind of like where I lean to, but I'm telling you that just simply taking a walk and purposely going out and really trying to observe my environment and also try to find new things that I've never seen before. No matter how many times I've walked down this street,
Mm.
I try to find something new and
Yeah.
something that I can appreciate. Or just, noticing like the changes in the weather that from day to day. And as long as it's not really bad weather, even if it's raining, I'll go out
Yeah.
unless it's really bad.
Yeah.
um, and just observing nature,
Yeah.
observing, and I just love that, and that's, to me, that's a very kind of a meditative and peaceful thing
Yeah. It's
that you know
yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting, the taking a walk approach, because it's such a simple thing, but it is so powerful. And also observing, like you said, just being out there and observing new things. I do the same thing. I don't know if that's a trait of an actor or of an artist or something, but I would walk down the street, especially when I was living in New York. You just walk down and you can be in awe of something that you've walked by a million times, and you're like, oh my god,
yeah,
I never even noticed that there was a gargoyle on the side of that huge giant building. You
exactly,
know,
the
it-
architecture in New York, it's just
it's,
amazing.
it's
It's
incredible, but
just,
you have to
and
look up and
you
you
have
got to
to
be
look up.
present.
And that's the thing, is like so many people, and I remember years ago in New York City coming to I've lived here for decades now, and when you come to New York, you're kind of like wide-eyed and, naive and all that. But as the years have gone on, I've definitely had my points when I've gotten jaded, and I've had, my rough times and hard days, and where you're really not looking up and you're kind of introverted, you're in your head and you have problems, you're trying to figure things out. But generally speaking, I make an effort, especially like when I'm going to auditions, when I'm walking to the audition, I'm looking at the environment. I'm already prepared, of course. So
Mm.
I'm not thinking really that much about, I've already done my preparation. Now I'm just getting in present time in communication with my environment. So when I go in that room, I can be totally present in the audition. But the point is that when you're really present and, like you said, observing things and admiring the architecture and the buildings and the trees and whatever it is, you can kind of look like a tourist sometimes.
Right.
And this has happened to me. And
It
people have
happens.
come
Yeah.
up to me and they say, and
Are you?
you strike up a conversation with a stranger and they say, "You don't live here, do you?" He says, "Because you don't act like a New Yorker." And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's like I guess I kind of take it as a compliment. Well, I guess that means that I'm not taking things for granted and I'm not jaded. I said,
Right.
"Hell, you have no idea how much of a New Yorker I really am."
Right.
Okay, it's like, but when you're able to be present to things, it makes you more vital, more alive, and kind of makes you a little bit more cheerful, I
Yeah,
think.
and more prepared too for whatever's coming. You're prepared for it because you're there, able to accept whatever it is. Um, that's
Yeah,
awesome. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
so
yeah,
let's talk a little bit about what you've been working on. I know last time we were here, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were the show on, was it HBO? Mark Ruffalo?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was just apparently just either aired or was just about to air, or we weren't really, but
Well, it already started. No, it had been airing already. Yeah, it's a 6-part miniseries. I Know This Much Is True, starring
Mhm.
Mark Ruffalo, and he's brilliant in it. He plays he plays twins, and it's, I mean, the cinematography, the special effects are amazing because you really you see him standing next to himself, but
I
you really get drawn into the story.
I saw
Did
it.
you?
I was I was shocked at how good the just the CGI thing that you see. Like
Yeah.
to be honest with you, when I first saw this is kind of embarrassing, but when I first saw it, I didn't know that he was playing both roles.
Well, you're not the only one. A lot of people thought that.
I thought, man, they found somebody, their brothers, and I could see because there's a slight difference between them.
Well,
There's
because
a
he's
slight
30 pounds
right.
heavier.
Yeah, and there's a slight difference. Yeah, exactly. But you also you can do that in CGI where you can make somebody a little bit. You can do anything.
Sort of, a
Sort of.
little bit.
But this
But
was
it
like
was much
legit.
better than what, yeah, it was
This
more
was
realistic than like what they did in The Irishman. Let's put it
right.
that way.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
The
yeah. The
Irishman,
Irishman
they,
was
you
was
know,
awkward.
I mean, that was a great feat in itself. But I mean, but the beautiful thing, thinking about it, what Derek's seeing in France, he's a brilliant director. And, he did Blue Valentine, and he also did
Mhm.
A Place Beyond the Pines.
Yeah,
And he and Mark worked very closely on this together based on the novel by Wally Lamb. And it's a brutally real, very heartfelt, gritty story
yeah,
about a man, an average guy just trying to do the best he can in life. And he's got a lot of crap to deal with, to
right,
put it mildly. And the biggest thing is that his twin brother is a paranoid, what they call a paranoid schizophrenic.
right.
And and he's trying to help him. And so anyway, it's been released on, it was released what, about 2 months ago on HBO, or 6 weeks
Mhm,
ago. 6-part miniseries, and I play a lawyer in the fifth episode with him.
mhm.
He comes to me asking for advice on how to get his brother out of a mental institution.
Right. Now your
And
your character was a
yeah.
bit. I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we could talk about that. I was just going to say, going back to the technical feat. I mean, there's so many accomplishments in this film. I mean, Derek also wrote the script. He adapted the script from the novel. But the thing is that the aesthetic of it, we shot an actual film. It wasn't shot digitally,
Right.
and that gives it a period look to it, because it wavers in time from the 1980s up to the 80s into the 90s, and then there's flashbacks that go all the way back about 50 years prior, and even more than that,
Mm,
going back to where his descendants came from in Sicily, and then they immigrated to the United States. And so there's this a different period if you want to say, like a sense of a time and a place, and to integrate that with the technology to make these two so that it's seamless, that you're seeing these two you're seeing Mark and his brother. I mean, one name is Dominic, and oh my gosh, and what's the other one's name? But the thing is that just the combination of this overall aesthetics of the whole piece combined with the technical
yeah,
aspect of it is one of the things that makes it so amazing.
yeah,
And that, what I mean, when you think about what they had to do, I mean, he lost 30 he lost 30 pounds before they started, and then he did all of the scenes where, all of the main character, who's the lighter character, and then they went back and did the other character after he took off several weeks to gain all the weight. Okay. And so then they had to go back and reshoot all those scenes with him playing the other part. And then he had a great guy, and I'm sorry I don't know his name, but the guy that played opposite him, who played his twin,
oh yeah, the
had to
bot.
do all those scenes with him, who is a same physical size, but they superimpose Mark's face onto
Right,
his body,
right.
and it's seamless. It's unbelievable. It's
It is,
just, I mean, the technical feat of how they did it was unbelievable. And then
yeah,
also, there's this wonderful actor, Philip Ettinger, who plays the younger version of Mark Ruffalo when he was like in high school and college. And this actor is one. I just like. I'm a cheerleader for all the kind of like the lesser known actors and the supporting actors, and who give wonderful performances. And this series is full of wonderful little gems of little performances. Even though this guy Philip has a large role, he does play the one of the largest roles. But to think of what he had to go through in playing this part, in that you have to think he's not only playing a young version of Mark Ruffalo, but he's playing a young version of Mark Ruffalo's interpretation of his twin brother too. He's
Good
playing
Lord.
two
That's right.
characters,
That's right.
and he also had to play opposite with like a double, with like a body double,
Right.
playing and go through the similar thing that
Wow.
Mark was going through, except with the other layer that he's trying to do it the way he thinks Mark would have been
Yeah.
playing that character when he was
Amazing.
21 years old. So
Interesting.
all these layers, and it's just amazing the work that goes into this. I mean, I just admire the work, the craftsmanship, and the talent that it takes to pull that off.
Absolutely.
So,
And just
you know,
bouncing off on that a little bit with the technology, um, there's a sort of a fine line, I guess, between when the technology or the special effects kind of takes away from the story. And you know
mm,
and for me, it's like I saw The Irishman. You mentioned The Irishman. I thought
mm,
that I really enjoyed The Irishman. I thought the performances were great. I thought it was a really strong film. um
mm,
the Once I got past a little bit of the awkward, um the stuff that they did, that special CGI stuff, I was a little bit, once I got used to it, then I kind of like I was okay with it. I got into the story. But
mm.
do you think that what's the fine line? Well, what do you think
Oh
would
God,
actually
yeah,
do that?
you're asking me.
Yeah, like what do you, because you
I have
you
no
you had
idea.
you were in this project and you're seeing this the
Yeah,
result.
but
And I know you didn't actually have that experience that Mark did, but
no,
there was this you're seeing the project now, so you're invested into that story. I
yeah.
mean, does it take you off the story? Did it take you out?
You mean
Or
what?
when
You
when
mean
you
in the
watch
in
it?
the in the Irishman? You mean, or in the?
Either one.
Oh,
Either one, like.
well, yeah. There were some moments I got distracted in the Irishman,
Mhm.
because of it, and it's
Yeah.
also partly because it was going back and forth in time, and it was sometimes hard to track which
What
phase. And there was a few scenes where I was thrown. And I'm like, wait, is this an earlier flashback to 10 years ago or
Right,
15 years ago or 20 years ago? Like,
right, yeah, I
there was
saw
a
it
few
3
times that
times
I
so I
got.
can get off.
Yeah, I watched it twice too, and
Yeah,
I wanted to sit back into it again another time, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think the challenge is that you're just trying to make people look younger or older, and that's its own particular challenge. Like,
right,
the good thing is, I know this much is true. They didn't have to age any of the characters or
right,
make
right,
them, and they didn't try to make Mark play himself when he was 20 years old. They had another
right,
actor,
right.
so that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that's a different game,
that's true. I
so,
always
you know.
think that I did enjoy The Irishman when I saw it the 3rd time, believe it or not. I don't
Wow,
know why,
three
but the 3rd
times,
time,
three
yeah,
times.
the 3rd
Wow.
time I really just got into it and I really enjoyed it. Um,
Mhm,
but yeah, no, that is interesting. I think if it just keeps the story, storytelling is storytelling, no matter what. But if it keeps it going and it's actually doing its job, then I think the technology part of it is definitely a benefit. If it can add something to it, getting
mhm.
back to your character in there,
Yeah, yeah.
not exactly the nicest guy. So
Yeah, yeah.
let me ask you a
S
question,
s
because
sleazy lawyer. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, is
yeah.
it fun to play those kinds of characters? Because I don't know, if what's it like? What was it like for you?
Ah, it's okay. I mean, you don't really think about that. I mean, I could
Really?
tell you, I have this film coming up, a feature where I play a really far more of the sleazy, like a psycho in
Oh
this
wow,
other film, and that's a talk about extreme characters, and so we could talk about that maybe a little bit,
yeah,
um, but you know, when you get into I mean, at first it may seem like there may be a discomfort when you say, "Oh, they want me to play a sleazy lawyer? What, do they think I'm a sleazy person?" And all this, and it's
ah,
like, "Well, no, you're just right for the part." And you go in and you do the best thing you can, and you play it for the truth of it. You play it, and you don't think about whether that you're actually a sleazy person. You play what's on the page, right? And
right,
so, but eventually the more you do it, and then you do all your preparation and your homework, and you get invested in the circumstances and the imagination. When you're on set, you're not thinking about any of that. I'm just thinking about, what am I doing? I'm there to just, what, I am this guy, and this is what I'm doing. That's
Yeah.
all. I am here to convince him that he should do a class action lawsuit. Okay.
Right.
And I'm trying to do it in the nicest way possible, without offending him, you know. But
Right.
I have to work with what the script is, at the script that was given me. But I
Right.
mean, we did improv. I've told you last time, we did a lot of improv, and what ended up in the final cut is about 50% improv and about 50% what the script was.
Wow.
But I took Mark's lead on that, and then Derek chimed in, and we improvised the beginning to the scene to get us into the flow of the scene, and then we played around, and we just we explored a lot of different things, and a lot of it ended up not getting used. And but they I think I partly understand why. Like, when you look at the arc of the story, I don't want to give it away, but there are some choices like that Mark made that ended up not being used because, well, I'll just say that his character, one of his issues is that he has a bad temper.
Right.
The character that he plays of Dominic, he's very kind of macho and kind of lashes out at the world, kind of, and sometimes he's kind of arrogant. And and the Rosie O'Donnell character tells him, I says, Dominic, you're arrogant, and that's your problem, and you need to listen to me. And she's trying to assist him in helping his brother, and he's kind of like being a know-it-all. And but the point is, by the time we get to the point in the film, in the series, where I'm confronting him, he's not as arrogant anymore, because he's on a journey. He's
Mm.
learning how to listen more, and you actually hear him, you see him trying to work with me instead of automatically reject me. He
Right.
ends up rejecting me. It ends up that he basically says, screw you.
Right.
But he doesn't do it in a very violent way. But you see, throughout the series, you see him be quite kind of violent and acting out
Mhm.
physically. And as it goes on, he's evolving and he's changing.
Sure.
And that's part of the journey that he's going through. And so we did many different takes where he was more aggressive, less aggressive, where he was, more angry, less angry. And so, and then they ended up, Derek made a decision about what he thought was appropriate at this part. And that's one of the interesting things about the film acting, especially, is that, when you're doing a scene, all that matters really ultimately is that scene at that moment.
Right.
But within that context of that one scene, if I mean, I've worked with other directors too that do like to improvise and like give you room, and you can explore all kinds of possibilities, but it's still within the context of that one scene. But then later, they're going to make a decision. The director and also the editor is going to make a decision about, or give recommendations about, which interpretation of the scene is going to service the overall story the best.
Right.
you know
Right.
so that's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
yeah. So let's talk about. I want to talk about two things. You had a.
Mm.
You said you have a feature coming out where you played a very extreme character. I wanted to talk about that, and then I wanted to
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about Henry Brock's Henry Brock's uh,
Henry
Henry.
Henry
I don't know who that is.
Henry from the Bronx. Henry
Henry
from
from
the
the Bronx.
Bronx.
Discover Henry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Henry
Henry
Box. Henry Box Brown.
Brown. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you take which one you want to actually start off with. I want to hear about both experiences and ask you a few questions based on each.
Oh yeah, whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. Oh, also, I was just on The Politician just before we move on. I
Oh
was on.
yes.
That was really fun. I was on The Politician. You can see that right now. episode 6 of season 2, and that was really fun to work on that show. And that's a great show. I mean, that's a, its own. They've created their own kind of universe, their own kind
Mm,
of aesthetic. It's very fun. It's very, especially now, it's a great show to watch. It just laugh.
yeah.
And but it definitely, it does have messages, and there's nice insights into human psyche and trying to be accepted and belong. And this guy is running, who's determined, that hell bent to become president of the United States at all costs. And
Yeah.
it's, there's the social commentary, and and it's about what it takes to be in politics, and what you, how do you, much do you have to compromise, and what are you compromising for? Do the ends justify the means, and all this kind of stuff. And
Right.
some great performances. Bette Midler's on there now, and
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow, and what's her name? Oh my God, I'm blanking on her name now. Who plays opposite Bette Midler? Oh Jesus, it'll come back to me. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that, it was
So
fun to be on that, and I play a politician on that, and just a little
yeah,
short little scene, and so that was a
that's
lot
so
of fun
cool.
to do that. Yeah.
So is
So
that with I know Ben Platt is in that, right?
well, he's the lead. Yeah, that's his
He's
show.
the lead.
Yeah.
And is he does he I don't, I've never seen the show, so I don't know how the show is structured. Is it structured because he's an amazing singer? I mean, I know him from,
Sometimes he sings on the show. Yeah,
oh, he does.
he
Okay.
has these beautiful private moments where he's like playing, like he'll be playing the piano by himself, or he'll be wandering off in
Oh,
his
sweet. I gotta
imagination,
check that out.
and he'll sing a song. I mean, it doesn't. I haven't gotten all the way through. I'm still catching up on old episodes, so
Right, right.
there's a lot that I don't know, that people know, that have been watching it all the time, that will
Yeah,
know
yeah.
more than I know, actually.
Yeah.
So,
I
but
need to check it
yeah,
out though.
I mean, he's so gifted also as an actor, and he's great with comedy, but he's so versatile. And the thing is, he'll go from pathos to humor within within almost a split second.
Yeah, yeah.
um, because he's also very deep feeling, and he's like, his character is dealing with tremendous amount of insecurity himself, and needing to be accepted, but then putting on this face that makes people believe in him, and makes him like school president, and he's rising through the ranks of politics.
Yeah.
But there's this other side to him that's completely the opposite, and you get to
Mm,
see him struggling with this as he's trying to deal with his family and his friends and his loved ones, and
yeah. I like to check
anyway,
it out because
it's very
I'm a
interesting.
fan. He's a great singer. I think I guess Dear Evan Hansen, I guess
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that what
yeah.
it's called? And
He's
he's
he's a brilliant actor though
brilliant,
too. He's
brilliant
really,
singer and everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so yeah. Sorry, you were
Yeah,
heading
no, yeah.
you were heading
Well,
somewhere.
I was just saying, I have a film coming out in that will be great. I mean, unfortunately, I can't say more details on it, but it will be released in North America in the beginning of next year, and also in Europe,
Hmm.
and in theaters, and then also on some digitally, and it's called Women. And this is a crime noir, like a thriller, crime noir by this Icelandic director, this really talented guy who's had several successful films in Iceland, and this is his first venture coming into the United States. It's his first U.S. film, and his name
Hmm.
is Anton Sigurdsson. And so I play the lead character of. I don't want to give too much away, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm basically a college professor who's very popular and very respected in this little southern town. And but he's got a very dark hidden side to him.
Hmm.
And he's doing very, very bad things that he should not be doing.
So I know you can't give away
Very,
too much.
very bad things. I'm the bad guy, and the detective
Yeah.
is actor. His name is Adam Dorsey. Really good guy, and really funny guy, actually, but you don't get to see his comedy in this film. He
Okay.
plays the detective who's trying to track me down, or trying to find, he's trying to
Yeah, yeah,
uncover enough evidence to be able to know that it's actually me who's doing terrible things in this town, and who's been doing
yeah,
them for a long time.
yeah.
And
Wow.
anyway, but this character is really, he's a psychopath.
Yeah.
So talking about these characters, like when you have to portray these, I mean, it's a big thing when you're carrying the lead in a film, and then you're also, um, you know, for several days and you're on set every day, and you're portraying this character, and especially when it's this character like this, I mean, it does some funky things to you, you know, um,
Yeah. I was
to
going to
be
ask
able
you
to
about
go.
that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
again, you have to just give yourself, you have to surrender to the script. You have to surrender to the story, and you have to allow it to affect you, right? And you do all your preparation, and I don't want to say too much about it before it comes out, but it
Of
was
course.
quite an experience, and I felt myself being I could just say that I felt a sort of a disconnection happening in myself.
Mm.
And I was concerned about it at first, because I thought, well, something's not right if I feel disconnected, that I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't understand my motivation, or I'm resisting something, or I'm not, something is just off. But
Mm.
then I realized that what I was experiencing partly was the disconnection of this man in his own mind.
Right.
Because
Ah.
when someone is this mentally, I mean, he's really deranged, okay? And he's one of these, who he's very, but he's highly intelligent. Okay,
Mm.
so he's able to compartmentalize. He has and it's like he almost has a split personality. And it's kind of like he has a split, if you want to say it, it's like he has two personalities that he operates in, and he's constantly fluctuating between these two, but
Mm.
nobody really quite is aware that it's happening. And I think that he knows sort of that it's happening. But the point is that that sense of disconnection, about feeling like you're not really being yourself, you're kind of like being somebody else. And like, because that's the only way he can justify what he does and his behavior and how the things that he's doing. And it's like, and so I felt like this. Did I say the word disconnection? Is that what I said?
Mm-hmm.
Disconnection?
Mm-hmm.
That I felt this strange disconnection happening, because I was kind of disconnected to some degree from reality, because if I truly confronted reality, I would truly have to confront what I'm actually doing to
Mm.
other people.
Oh, that's true.
Okay,
Right.
so it's kind of like I could only connect so much with reality, so I was kind of disconnected as a mental protection, to not have to confront. Because anyway, it sounds kind of weird to
Yeah.
talk about it like this without
No.
the context of seeing the film and like
Right.
understanding it.
Right. Right.
But it's like, I think that that's sort of what happens, is that it's like when someone lies to themselves, and we've all done that, where we're not being sincere with ourselves, or we're not being truthful with ourselves, and on some level we know it, and to that degree that we're not willing to confront it, we're not really in touch with, we're kind of, we're out of touch with ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
some degree, and we're
Mm-hmm.
distancing ourselves from our true essence in some way, when if it's something, especially if it's something important that we're not confronting or we're not dealing with in life. It's like this feeling of disconnection that sometimes can happen. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's, or like, like finally you feel something bad about something, and then you finally like admit it and say, oh shit, I screwed up, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like maybe simple something like you're meeting a friend, and you were late, and you don't want to bring it up that you were late, but then you just get off your chest, I'm sorry I was late, I'm so
Right.
sorry.
Right.
And then now you're more in communication with the person, and then you can
Right.
move on. But
Right.
like if you hold on to it and you're not releasing it, then your attention is on that, and you're not really
Yeah. And you're
as
sitting on
present
it
as you
forever.
could be. Huh? Yeah.
And you're
you
sitting
know
on that forever, and it'll affect you later on with other things.
yeah,
It may
exactly.
seem small, but yeah.
And it can accumulate, and that's the
Right.
thing. Like, I think that when you talk about people that are really in a bad mental state, is they've allowed all these things to accumulate that they've never confronted. And the
Mhm.
problem is, it just builds up, and it becomes harder and harder to confront over time, and these things pile up on each other. And this guy has had a lifetime of these things piling up on him that he
Mm.
hasn't confronted.
Mm. Wow. Yeah.
You know, and
Crazy.
and they're very bad things.
Right.
And but the thing is, like most things, it started off where he was the effect of somebody else. He went the effect of someone else doing something very painful to him, and
Mm,
then he started to act that out on other people. And then he never
wow.
got control of it, and it took him over, and then he just continued to do it as a way of surviving.
Jeez.
Anyway,
So
and it
I
is
have a
again, it's kind of when the
yeah,
movie
yeah.
comes out, then we can talk.
Right.
But it's a quite a it's a I think hopefully, you know, it'll be a good little film.
Yeah. I'm
And
looking
but the
forward
character,
to it.
it's an amazing character that I got to play, you
That's
know,
awesome.
and it was and Anton Sigurdsson is a wonderful director. He had a great team and great collaboration on that, and you know, and I really got to work closely with him and have a lot of input on things,
Yeah.
and I learned a lot.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have a question here from our Matt Briggs, who's a supporter of my show. I always appreciate him. He says, "Can actors jump into a valence of a role and have problems coming out of it?" Well, Michael, you better not have problems coming out of that one.
When you say valence, I think you mean like go into a personality. Is that what he
Yeah,
means?
like personality.
Go into a personality and well, yeah, yeah, that can definitely happen. And this happens all the time. This is a fascinating thing because you know, you talk to actors, and actors all have a different point of view. Some people say, "Oh, I can cry my heart out on stage every night and have this emotional, you know, whirlwind, and then I can just leave it all behind me at the stage door. It doesn't affect me at all. It doesn't affect my life." And I think it's
Yeah,
bullshit.
yeah,
And I think it's bullshit. But I need to qualify that too, because there's degrees and whether you're on stage or whether you're in a film. Now, sometimes the problem is when you're in a film, you don't get to the beauty of being on stage is that hopefully you have a trajectory and you kind of like you have a beginning and a middle and an end that you get to live through every night. And hopefully if your character goes through some kind of catharsis or character reaches a resolution, hopefully it depends on the character and what part you play in the story. Sometimes you won't, but if you're able to complete the cycle, then you can at least have a resolution, and then you can end and leave the theater every night thinking, okay, I finished that journey. Now, sometimes the character, like, what if the character gets killed in the middle of the performance, and it's like
right.
his life is cut short? Then you're stuck with that, right? And the
Right.
actor is stuck with that, and he, you know, and
Yeah.
so that's another extreme. But you know, but just a few things, and then I'll go back to about whether you take it with you or not. The similar thing can happen when you're doing a film where you may be shooting a scene, and the scene is not complete in itself. The scene has a beginning and a middle and an end, but you haven't done the full journey of the character yet. You've only done a small part of it. And so maybe at the end of that day or the end of that scene, you're really riled up and
Mm,
you're kind of like stuck in an emotion or an action because that's kind of how the scene went, and the scene is not necessarily resolved yet, or maybe you shot just half of the scene and now you're going to have lunch and then you got to go back, right? And maybe you want to stay in the headspace because you're taking a break and you want to live where you are because you know you're going to go back into this space
right.
again, similar
Right.
psychological or mental or emotional space again. So but a lot of times, you know, when it's done, you want to be done, and maybe you have to shoot a completely different scene because also you shoot out of sequence. Maybe you have to shoot a scene the next day that you're in a completely different mental space.
That's
It may
right.
even be a flashback. It may be something that happened in the past already, or maybe something that's happened in the future, but it's way down the line. And it's not the next thing that's going to happen. And so you
Yeah.
have to be able to, again, just focus on the scene for the value of that scene and what, you know, what's going on in that scene. And so it is very important to be able to let go of where you were and what you just did so that you can move on. And the thing is that I'll say that what I was going to say before is that this is a prime example. Anthony Hopkins, I mean, genius, one of my role models, and I study him very closely in every
Mhm.
film that I can get my hands on that he's done, um, and any stage performances that I can see. And I think that he just said maybe only about 10 years ago or something, when he was probably, I mean, he's almost, I don't know how, I mean, he's in either in his late 70s or his early 80s now, and
Yeah.
he's still acting like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And, but like, this was only about 10 years ago. He said, I never thought my whole career, which was at that time, he'd been, what, 50 years? He
Right.
said, I never really thought that my work affected my life. And now I realize I was wrong.
Wow.
My work on stage or in film has informed and affected my life in ways that I didn't even realize. It's affected my state of mind. It's affected, and I'm paraphrasing this, and I wish I
Mhm.
could, I don't know the exact, I remember him saying this, that he realizes it had more of an effect on him than you know, he realized. And I'm saying, well, if it can affect him and he wasn't
Mhm.
even aware of it, and he's one of the genius actors of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
second half of the 20th century, then
Yeah.
I can safely assume that I think that that's sort of like a normal human condition. And I think that's the truth, is that we're very, you know, we are affected. We have the ability to be affected by everything around us, all the stimulus that we experience every day, whether whether it's conscious or not conscious. And we can exert our awareness over that and decide what we want to be at the effect of or not be at the effect of.
Mhm.
And when you're doing a role, I think it's only natural, and I've learned this, that, and I still have to remind myself when I play certain parts, like say in this role, in this thing, Henry Box Brown, that we'll talk about this role. This is a role about, I mean, this story is a story of a African American slave who escapes slavery, and and it's a very emotional story, and
Yeah.
it's mentally, at least for me, and sometimes emotionally draining. And I'm only the white guy in the show. I'm not even I mean, seriously, I'm
Yeah.
not even, I'm playing a white man. I play an abolitionist preacher who finally comes to his senses and realizes that he's been using the Bible to manipulate and to keep the slaves in line, which is what they did, saying
Mhm.
that it's in the name of God. And it was hypocritical. It was actually the antithesis of what really I believe. If you're a spiritual person, if you believe in the human spirit, you don't, it's actually, what they were doing was the opposite of what they should have been doing at that time. And so I had to, I go through a kind of a catharsis, which is great that I get to have that experience and kind of let it go. But even so, when I do this role playing this abolitionist minister on stage every night, I realized it was affecting me, and it was affecting my personality when I wasn't on stage.
Mhm.
And to and and this is just my personal experience. I'm not talking about, I mean, I have wonderful friends, great friends who are in the show, that portray the slaves, and their experience is probably 10 times more stressful than what I went through, because they're actually depicting slavery
Right.
and taking up imagining and living out their life as a slave on stage that night, and everything that goes along with that, the
Yeah.
degradation, the invalidation, the humiliation, the lack of respect, okay, being treated like property. And 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 it's it's you know
Yeah.
that
I
it's
saw
just,
the
it's
clip.
very intense.
I saw the clip.
You saw a clip?
And whoa. I mean, first of all, the voices are
Yeah.
incredible. That the harmonies and everything is just, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Your performance is fantastic. You can really see the anguish that
Yeah,
you're just
anguish.
you're just like
A lot of regret,
a lot of
and yeah,
regret, and just like you can just feel he's just at the point where he just realized, what am I doing? What have I done? Um, and so that
exactly.
whole piece that you was really, really brilliant. Um, when you're working on a piece like that,
Yeah.
what are some of the
What
go ahead. You
Yeah.
were saying.
Yeah, you know what? I was just saying, to answer Matt's question though, because I kind of like, this is the long-winded answer. But the thing is, the point is, I think we have to, as artists, be willing to accept the fact that we are deeply affected by the work we do,
Mm,
and that because that's where we're putting our attention. Wherever you put your attention is going to affect you mentally, emotionally, physically. And if you're putting your attention on those kinds of things, it's going to affect you in that way. And
Sure.
the same thing, like if you're playing a happy role, if you're doing comedy, that's
Right.
going to affect you. And you're
Right.
probably going to feel better when when
Yeah.
you're doing that show, you're going to be having a good time. And
Right.
like people will say, actors will say, God, I need to do a comedy, I just want to have fun, you know.
Right.
And they value doing something light and cheerful because they know it does affect their disposition. And it's
Right.
really about this phenomena of attention. And so I think the idea is the concept, and this is going back to John what we said before about this, just a simple, the the powerful simplicity of like taking a walk. Anything
Yes.
that you can do that is going to extrovert your attention off of what you just did is going to help you. Okay, so if you're really emotionally wrought because of the scene you just did or because of the performance that you just had, the best thing you can do is go out and take a walk. Like after the show, it's at night. Go take a walk for a half hour and just decompress. Don't think about anything and just go around and enjoy. Like that's what I would do. We did the show in Edinburgh for 2 years, but Edinburgh is a beautiful place. Okay, and there's always so many great things to do and see there because there's all kinds of shows going on. And so you go out after. I will go out after the show sometimes, purposely by myself to just go for a walk
Mm.
and not think about anything and just enjoy the beautiful architecture of Edinburgh and the
Mm-hmm.
sights and the sounds and all the people and everything like that, and just get out of your head, and by putting my attention somewhere else, putting my attention off of the performance, off of whatever occurred that night on stage,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is, like, you go and give a performance every night, and once you really know what you're doing on stage and you have certainty about what you're playing, you don't need to think about it when you get off stage every night. I can prepare it the next night before I go on stage. I have time to prepare, to get into that frame of mind, to do whatever warm-ups I need to do, and then I'll think about the show then. But once I leave the theater, it's like, forget about it.
Right.
but to
Right.
help but to help yourself forget about it, you purposely put your attention out. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's one thing that helps, so that you don't get stuck.
Right.
And that's the same thing like when you're on set. Now sometimes, you know after a long day, maybe you have some time to decompress and go out for a walk. But
Yeah.
during the day, when you might have a lot of scenes back to back, and you really just got to do the best you can. To maybe I only have 10 minutes and I say, I'm going to go take a walk, I'll be back in 10 minutes, say, and
Yeah.
then you leave the set and you leave and you go out and you just go look at some trees and look at some birds or something for a few minutes, and then you
Yeah.
come back you
Yep.
know
So Matt says, I wonder if this caused the death of Heath Ledger. Who knows?
Ooh.
Who knows? I
Oh
mean,
geez, because why? Because
well, he played the
oh
Joker, which
the
was
Joker.
that was a really dark role. What was funny
well
was,
you know what, I mean, I
yeah.
have to say, I'm sorry, John, go ahead. Yeah, what were you going to say?
No, no, I was actually going to tell a story, but go ahead. I'll tell us
No, I
one.
mean, I think it's a good observation, and you know what? I mean, who knows? But
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it did, because someone that gets so into the character, and listen, when you're doing something like that, I mean, you have to fully commit, and I can only imagine what he had to go through to play that part. But also, I think if I'm correct, he had some kind of medication going on, and
Right.
I think he may have had he may or may not have been on antidepressants, but I think he may have been on something for a back problem. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that's correct or not. My point is, any kind of drugs like that are not going to help. I'm not saying that you don't deal with the back problem and that maybe you're in a severe situation where you do need to take medication, but there's a lot of, I would try to use natural remedies as much as possible.
Right.
And you have to just be aware, and that you're going to be vulnerable if you're going to take medications, certain kind of medications, that sometimes the medications have the effect of intensifying whatever you're putting your attention on. And if it's something that has a lot of, if it's pain related,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of intensifies it. It can
Sure.
intensify it, and it can put you in a bad state where it's very hard to get your attention off
Yeah.
of the
Sure.
thing. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, if it was me, and specifically, if you're playing I'm lucky that I was aware enough of this, like this crazy character that I was playing. I purposely tried to take my attention off it. I didn't go home and then sit and ruminate about the character. Okay, well, I had to go home and prepare the scene, go to the hotel, and then prepare the scene for the next day. So, but I had to at least give myself a few hours where I would de- de- detach
Yeah.
and take my attention off it, you
Yeah.
know and then, and this is what I do, is like I'll take, and then I'll focus intensely, maybe put my intention on it, then I take my attention again completely off it before I go to bed, so that I'm not thinking about it before I go to bed. I
Yeah. You
don't
don't
I
want to be
mean,
screaming.
yeah, assuming that I've done all the preparation, I've already done enough work, then I don't need to be worried about it. I don't need to think about my lines when I'm sleeping or whatever.
Right.
you
Right. Yeah.
know
Exactly.
you know
I mean,
like, so, but that's a whole phenomena of attention. And so, like,
yeah.
what would be really great is, like, especially if you're really playing an intense role, plan to meet a friend afterward, or someone that you can be in conversation with that can totally divert your attention
Mhm.
from what's going on, you
Yeah.
know and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just imagining, maybe he was going home and ruminating on his character because he had to shoot the next day, and he was like living in the character. I mean, I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't do, but for
Yeah.
me, I would be wary about going too far.
Yeah.
I mean, and you also
So
have to know your personality too, because maybe he was more of the type of person that, you're also an individual, and people have different strengths and weaknesses too. So that's
right.
also maybe a factor to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, one of my experiences was kind of interesting. I was in New York City, like on 23rd Street and like 7th, and we were shooting out there in the corner on a phone booth. I was supposed to be making a frantic phone call to someone, like I needed help, and I was a paranoid guy. And it was in a film called Down.
I think I remember.
Yeah, it was Down and Across, and it went to the Cannes Festival. It did really well, actually. And
That's
so I'm on
awesome.
I'm on this phone and I'm like panicking, and behind the cameras there were just little, you know how people gather around and when they see cameras and stuff. So there were a few people gathering, and I finished my scene, and I hear one guy goes, "Yo, man, that's what happened to Heath Ledger, man. That's how he died, by doing scenes like that." And I remember just laughing, and everybody on set was like, because he said it in his voice was very baritone, so it kind of cut through all the New York City noise and the cabs and all that, and everybody
Oh
heard it.
my God.
But I think that that's the stigma that those kind of characters, when people play them, like Jack Nicholson's in The Shining, and
Mm,
these really really over the top, sociopath crazy people, um,
mm,
that it's people just think that, well, that's part of you must take that with you, and it's not necessarily true. I think you do, like you said, you have to kind of disconnect, and you have to be very methodical about it. What you do, you're like, okay, I'm gonna work on this. Now I'm gonna go take a walk. Now I'm gonna forget about this. Then I'm gonna forget about. If you don't do that when you're playing this kind of role, you're screwed. If you go to bed
yeah.
thinking that you are this guy, I mean, and it goes for both types of characters. Because even if you're playing a happy character, which I've played characters where I thought, man, this guy was so cool. I wish I could just keep being this guy, but you can't go home and start being that guy, because that's screwing you up too.
What?
So
Your wife wouldn't let you?
yeah, she wouldn't let me be such a happy guy. She'll know something was wrong. She's like, why are you so
You
happy?
might say something that you shouldn't say.
Right. Like, why are you being so nice? I'm being a character. Um, where are the divorce papers?
You don't
So
want to get too nice, right? It's like,
exactly.
yeah, you don't
Yes,
want to. You don't want to create too high expectations for yourself,
exactly.
John.
I gotta keep
It's
things
like.
controlled over here. I got a good thing going. I don't want to screw it up.
But
Um,
you know what? Can I just say though? I like talking about these things, but I think there is a time and a place where you're really exploring the character before you really get to do before you're on set or before you go into rehearsal, where maybe you can ruminate because you're trying to make a connection with the script, and that you may let yourself go there and spend a lot of time trying to get into that world, or let it come to you, let it wash over you, or surrender to it. And there's a time for that. But once you feel that you have certain amount of connection with that universe, so to speak, or that world, then I kind of am able to then, once I've done enough of that work, and I feel like I can embody it, and if it starts to become organic, then I can put it aside.
Mm.
But you need to do that before you go to set, and then so then you can have the freedom to take it on or leave it. To
Right.
put on the hat, take the hat off. Put the hat
Right.
on, take the. It's just like learning. It's like a muscle, or like learning a technique, like
Yeah.
or like learning the song. You know the song cold. You don't need to think about the song anymore. But you
Right.
spend a lot of work working on the song to get it perfect, right? Now you
Right.
just let it go. You go out on stage and you just let it go, right? And then you don't have to think about it. And after you're not thinking about the song, you're like, because sometimes what happens is, especially young actors, they don't know what it requires to be prepared properly.
Mm.
They don't know how much work they need to do to be properly prepared, and so they're preparing when they shouldn't be preparing anymore, because they're trying to catch up, because they realize something's missing or wrong. And that's
Now,
when you can get mentally obsessed with over
yeah.
preparing, or like they're off stage when they should be able to relax, but they're worried about the next scene. But they shouldn't have to worry about the next scene if they're already prepared.
So
Or when you're
why do
on,
you think that's happening? Why do you think that happens with a young actor? Like, is there just
well, it's
is
just that it's
training
just that
not
they're
good?
it's just that
I
they're
mean,
it's just that they're learning.
but
It's a learning, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of people, it's one of the key things, like you talk about. I mean, I believe in the power of simplicity and the power of the basics, and that a
right.
lot of times, in the basics of whatever it is that you want to be good at, or that you want to be a professional, or that you are a professional at, is that professionals never forget the basics, and they always go over the basics, and
Yeah.
you don't take those things for granted. And that some of the simple things, that it's funny, like some of the most basic things that you might have learned in your first acting class, they're still true
Yep.
decades later. It doesn't change. And you need to honor those things and respect those things, and to apply those things that you've learned. And sometimes people don't get the proper training, right?
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. But then also, it's partly not just, really, the ultimate training is learning from your own experience. It's applying the theory that you've learned in class, and then you've done some practicals, like you've done scene work and you've worked with other actors, but you really don't know till you're on stage with a real audience, and you really just do it a lot. You have a lot of stage time, or you're on camera a lot. That's the only way you really learn. And so there's a step-by-step process where you can't hold it against an actor if they don't have enough experience yet, that
Right.
they're still learning, and hopefully they're assimilating, and they're learning as they go. If they're very sharp and smart and attentive, they'll realize, okay, now I realize what I should have done in that scene. Okay, I know what I can do to be better prepared next time. And they're
Yeah.
always, but this is a lifelong process too. It never really ends, right? But the thing is, I mean, I know that when I was younger, I used to, like, say, if it was an emotional scene, sometimes I would over prepare.
Mm.
I would do an emotional preparation for a scene that put me in such too emotional of a state, so that I couldn't be present in the scene. I was
Mm.
so caught up in some emotional state, or maybe just that the emotion was not appropriate for the scene. I was like overly intense, where the scene didn't call for that, or the
Mm.
what this character was going through, it just wasn't appropriate.
Right.
And
Right.
and and I had a good friend that said to me, Mike, she said, Mike, I think you over prepared for the scene. You did too much prep, or your preparation was too intense. And then I
Interesting.
realized, you know what?
Yeah.
I think that she's right. It took a few
Right.
days for it to sink in, and I said, you know what? And that's the thing about, it's interesting about, you know, when you're a professional, about, that's one of the things, is knowing how much work you have to do and how much work you don't have to do, and
Right.
only doing the work you need to do, and being able to cut through the excess or the unnecessary stuff, and go right and know what you really need to do. And
Hmm.
that's what you see also in a great performance, is you see economy of doing that, whether it's a musician or singer or an actor, that they don't do what they don't need to do. They only do what they have to do to communicate, and no more and no less. There's still, it's still a matter of taste and, interpretation, but that's what you're going for. But that also applies to your preparation, about
Yeah.
that you sometimes, a less experienced person in any field, they will do a tremendous amount of preparation or do all this homework and do all these things, and then their senior will say to them, like, or the more experienced actor or the director or their colleague will say, you didn't need to do all that.
Right.
Why do you spend hours and hours banging your head? But it's partly
Yeah.
because the less experienced person wants to feel that they've done their job,
Right.
right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and that's valid and that's good. I don't want to say you got to do the work, but
Right.
sometimes the thing is, as you learn more about what you do need to do. You do
Right.
more of what you need to do and less of what you don't need to do, and
Right.
you get better. Your judgment improves,
Yeah.
and then hopefully, especially as when you're an actor and say you have a million on, like if you're auditioning regularly like I am, you have to be able to do very quick preparation to
Mhm.
learn a scene. You don't have a long time, and
Right.
that's part of what you learn is, how can I quickly prepare this scene without belaboring it and know that I'm prepared, and it doesn't have to necessarily take a long time to do that,
Yeah. And
you
one of
know.
the interesting things is when you hear of very established older actors, they never feel like they're above the basics, like you mentioned. Like they will talk about the basics in their interviews.
Mm,
What they actually do, what they do now is what same thing that they did, 30, 40, 50 years ago when they were working, and you kind of understand that, really understanding the basics will give you your method, because like you said, you have to know what you have to do, but not what you don't have to do. You have to also know what you don't have to do and how much preparation you actually need. Some people
yeah,
might need a little bit more, but knowing the basics will really
right,
give you a good foundation of what it is that I do. Okay, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at blocking. I'm not good at I need to really work on my lines. I need to really get those. Some people are really great with lines, right? You give them 5 pages and they're like, yeah, I got it. And some people really
mm,
need more time. Some people
mm,
will get the lines and they're good with the script, but they can't match the blocking to the, okay, you have to be over here when you get to this line.
yeah,
They can't do that. So there's a lot of different
yeah,
to kind of figure out where is your strong point, and I think that knowing the basics really strong will
yeah.
actually give you that foundation.
Absolutely, it's very valid. Yeah, we all have our strengths and weaknesses too. Well said. And you have to be aware of your own. Like you said, some people have, and they just happen to know. Like some people need, exactly. Some people learn lines quickly. Some people takes more time,
Hmm. Hmm.
and and they just know what they need to. I mean, hopefully, you learn what you need to do for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Michael, here we are at an hour, hour 2 minutes.
I know. I just saw the time. Oh my God, it's been an hour already.
What? It's amazing.
So.
So, we covered a lot of things. You always bring such great wisdom to the table. I really appreciate what you're saying, because I'm really interested in not just how you prepare and what your viewpoints, but how you actually see others that you work with, and how much validation you give to them. I really appreciate that too, because that's actually a really sign of a good actor and a good artist. So I really appreciate that. What are you currently? I know you have, I mean, obviously we're all still kind of in this weird situation.
Mhm.
But what exactly are you working on now that you can tell people to go check out? And I know your website is up here, so people can go to your
Yeah,
website
yeah,
as well and
yeah,
follow
yeah.
you. Um,
Well, I wish I could say more than, I mean, this film is called Women, that's coming out, and will be released next in I think in January, and I'm very excited about that. And um, so I can't really say more about it till
yeah,
then. And then, but I'm working on a solo show also, which I'm
can't
working
say.
on a solo show that I cannot talk about. I mean, I could talk about it, but it's just premature at this point. That I'm very excited about, that I've been
Okay.
working on now for several months, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for several years. And now that the pause has given me the time focus on that, which is great. So I'm working on that, and then I'm also working on I have a screenplay that actually was just completed. Something that again I've been putting off for a long time,
Mm.
and I'm also I don't want to, I won't say anything more about it now. But then also I'm working on a pilot for I'm I'm part of the team that's helping develop a children's show.
Oh wow!
And
I
I think
yeah,
I mentioned this before, and
yeah, yeah. I think Matt is right. I think Matt said
huh?
this episode can go on for hours more. Part three. I think you're right. We might have to do a part
Uh,
three. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate the support.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so I'm working on I'm the lead character for this children's show where it's done through motion capture. I'm playing a cartoon character, but it's actually CGI. I'm inhabiting, doing the physicality of this character, but
Oh,
also
cool.
doing the voice. And it's in development right now, and it's it's a lot of fun, and I'm working with some great people on that. And I wish I could say more about it, but it would be premature to say anymore.
Right.
And um but that's so I've got all these things going on. Oh, and also thing I can say is I also help other, I work behind the scenes helping other producers and directors with different projects. And one thing I'm working on is a show that will be at the Edinburgh Festival next. We were supposed to be there this August, but of course it's canceled. The Edinburgh Festival, and it's an inspiring one man show by this guy named Ted McGrath, who is an amazing motivational speaker. And
Mm.
it's an inspiring true story of his life, how he overcame drug addiction, and a kind of a negative self-worth that he had. He basically was very down and very critical of himself. And even though he
Mm.
became very successful when he was young and early in life, he never felt that he was good enough.
Mm.
And so he ended up writing this story about his life and making it into a stage play. And it's been done it was done in Hollywood already, and now we're bringing it to the Edinburgh Festival next year. And
Great.
it's a really inspiring story and so I'm helping them uh, get this ready to bring
Oh,
over
that's
there.
cool. Awesome.
So
Awesome.
yeah,
Great.
and
Well,
it's
Michael.
directed. Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Go
I
ahead.
just
I'm
want to
sorry.
say it's directed by Jim Barber. And
Okay.
if you know Jim Barber, a lot of people know him for playing the Phantom on Broadway, and that was the last. He's a Broadway veteran, and he's also a director and producer, and so
Oh wow.
he's directing this project. Yeah,
Nice. Nice.
yeah.
So, Michael, as always, it is such a pleasure to have you on here. We're gonna have to do, like Matt said, we're gonna have to do a part three and talk more about the craft, because I love the conversation. It's very interesting, and I think it helps not only other artists, but I think it helps people understand this side of that business of what it is that goes on behind the scenes, and I think that's valid. So,
Mm.
I want to thank you for your time, and please come back again.
Sure, John. Anytime.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a
Okay.
great night.
Okay,
Hang
man.
on. Don't go away. Stay right there. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Take care. All right. So there we have it again, Mr. Michael Simon Hall. He's always fantastic. Just great information. I hope everyone got a lot of value from that. We're definitely going to have him back again. We need a part three. So we'll schedule that. But thank you, everybody. If you enjoy this show and you enjoy what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell, share it with someone that you think would help, especially this episode that has a lot of great information for any actors. So share it out to people. Thank you, everybody. And tomorrow I'll be back with Patty Boom Boom. She is a boxer, and she is a professional boxer, Golden Glove. She's going to be on tomorrow. Really excited to talk to her. So please tune in tomorrow night, 9:30 live right here. See you all tomorrow. And as always, peace.